The smell of fresh cookies filled Grandma Park's small kitchen on a quiet Tuesday morning. She hummed an old song while rolling out dough with her favorite wooden rolling pin. This rolling pin was special. It had helped her make food for 3 generations of her family. Outside her window, the world was not so peaceful. Military vehicles rushed through the streets of Seoul. Phones were ringing everywhere. TVs in every home showed the same breaking news. Huge spaceships were coming to Earth. Grandma Park, whose full name was Park Sunja, didn't care much about all this noise. She was busy making her famous butter cookies for her grandchildren. Her grandson Duhan was coming to visit, and he loved these cookies since he was small. In the busy UN building in New York, things were very different. The Security Council room was full. World leaders appeared on big screens, their faces showing worry. They had just received a message from space. It was not a friendly one. "The Stellar Coalition has decided Earth is too dangerous," said the Defense Minister Yang Min-ki, reading from a paper. "They think our cooking shows are actually showing weapons training." He looked tired and confused. Back in her kitchen, Grandma Park turned on her small TV while putting another batch of cookies in the oven. The news showed pictures of the alien ships. They were big and silver, like giant mixing bowls turned upside down in the sky. "Grandmother," Duhan's voice came from the front door. He rushed into the kitchen, still wearing his diplomat uniform. His face was red from running. "You need to turn on the news." "I already did," she said calmly, checking her cookies. "Would you like some tea with your cookies? You look tired." "Grandmother, this is serious," Duhan said, catching his breath. "The aliens think we're dangerous. They're especially scared of." He stopped and looked at the rolling pin in her hand. "Scared of what?" Grandma Park asked, using the rolling pin to flatten more dough. "They're scared of cooking videos. They think our kitchen tools are weapons, and they're most afraid of." Duhan couldn't help but laugh a little, even though the situation was serious. "They're most afraid of grandmothers with rolling pins." Grandma Park stopped her work and looked at her rolling pin. It was just a simple piece of wood, smooth from years of use. She had used it to make countless meals and treats. How could anyone think it was dangerous? Just then, her TV showed more news. The alien ships were getting closer. They would reach Earth in 3 days. World leaders were arguing about what to do. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to hide. Nobody seemed to have a good plan. "Your cookies are getting cold," Grandma Park said to Duhan. "Eat them while they're still warm. Everything is better with warm cookies." Duhan sat down at the small kitchen table. As he bit into a cookie, his eyes got wide. An idea was forming in his mind. It was a crazy idea, but in crazy times, maybe that was exactly what they needed. "Grandmother," he said slowly, "how would you feel about meeting some aliens?" Grandma Park was already putting on a fresh apron. "Will they want cookies too?" she asked, as if meeting aliens was as normal as having neighbors over for tea. Outside, more military vehicles rushed by. News helicopters flew over the city. The whole world was scared. But in one small kitchen in Seoul, a grandmother calmly packed cookies into a box, while her grandson made the most important phone call of his life. Sometimes the best answers to big problems are the simple ones, and sometimes the best person to save the world is a grandmother with a rolling pin and a box of fresh cookies. The UN Security Council meeting room was very quiet as they watched the alien message again. On the big screen, a tall blue creature pointed at pictures from Earth's cooking shows. The alien's voice shook with fear. "Look at their training camps," the alien said. "They teach their young to handle dangerous weapons at home. They call these places kitchens. The most feared warriors are the elderly females they call grandmothers." Defense Minister Yang Min-ki rubbed his tired eyes. He had been in this room for 6 hours now. "They think our cooking shows are combat training videos," he explained to the room. "They are especially afraid of baking videos." On another screen, they watched a clip from a popular baking show. A grandmother was showing how to roll out cookie dough. The alien recording had marked the rolling pin in red, labeling it as primitive but effective battle staff. In the corner of the meeting room, Grandma Park was arranging cookies on a plate. She had come with Doohan when he was called in for an emergency meeting. Nobody had the heart to tell her she couldn't come along. "Minister Yang," a voice called out. "You need to see this analysis." A young assistant handed him a tablet. The minister's eyes grew wide as he read. "According to their messages," he said slowly, "they are most afraid of our baking videos featuring grandmothers. They think these are recordings of our most elite warriors." The room was silent again. Then someone started to laugh. Soon, others joined in. The whole situation was too strange to stay serious. "Excuse me," Grandma Park's voice came from the corner. "Would anyone like some fresh cookies? You all look very tired." The laughter stopped as she walked around the room with her plate of cookies. Each person took one, including the minister. The cookies were perfectly made, crispy on the outside and soft inside. "These are amazing," Minister Yang said, reaching for another cookie. Then he noticed something. The way Grandma Park moved around the room was so smooth and careful. She made sure everyone got cookies without disturbing the meeting. She knew exactly when someone needed a napkin or wanted another cookie, without them saying anything. Doohan watched as the minister studied his grandmother. He could see the minister's mind working. "Sir," Doohan said quietly, "remember how the aliens said they judge species by how they handle their tools?" Minister Yang nodded slowly, still watching Grandma Park. She was now cleaning up crumbs with practiced moves of her small brush, making the meeting room look better than before. "And they think grandmothers are our warrior elite because of their skill with tools." Doohan continued. He picked up his grandmother's rolling pin from her bag. "Well, they're not entirely wrong about the skill part." Just then, one of the screens lit up with a new message. The aliens wanted to meet with Earth's leaders. They wanted to see these kitchen warriors up close. Minister Yang stood up suddenly. "Mrs. Park," he called out, "how would you feel about serving your cookies to some special guests?" Grandma Park smiled as she packed up her cookie plate. "Of course," she said, "but they better not be late. Cookies are best when they're fresh from the oven." The minister turned to the rest of the council. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "I think we just found our secret weapon. The aliens want to see Earth's most skilled tool users." He gestured to Grandma Park, who was carefully wrapping her rolling pin in its special cloth. "Let's show them exactly what they asked for." Doohan couldn't help but smile. His grandmother was about to become Earth's most important diplomat, and she didn't even know it yet. She was just happy to have more people to feed. The next morning, Grandma Park stood in front of 20 important people in dark suits. They were trying to teach her about diplomacy. It was not going well. "Mrs. Park, please remember to bow at exactly 30 degrees, said Mr. Choi, the head diplomat trainer. "The aliens are very particular about angles." Grandma Park was more interested in the plate of poorly made cookies on the table. Someone had tried to copy her recipe, and they had clearly done it wrong. "These cookies are too hard," she said, picking one up. "The oven was too hot." "Who made these?" Mr. Choi looked embarrassed. "Mrs. Park, we need to focus on the diplomatic training. The aliens will arrive in 2 days. Diplomacy starts with good food," she said firmly. "Clear the table. I will show you how to make proper cookies. Then we can talk about bowing." Doohan watched from the corner, trying not to smile. His grandmother had been like this all morning. Every time they tried to teach her diplomatic rules, she turned it into a cooking lesson. Minister Yang walked into the room just as Grandma Park was showing everyone how to measure flour correctly. He started to say something, then stopped and watched. "You see," Grandma Park was saying, "if you are careful with your measurements, respectful of your ingredients, and patient with the process, you will always have good results." She looked at the diplomats. "Isn't that the same as your diplomatic rules?" Minister Yang's eyes widened. "Mrs. Park is right," he said suddenly. "She understands diplomacy better than we do. She just uses different words." The other diplomats looked confused, but Duhan understood. His grandmother had been solving family arguments with food for decades. She knew how to bring people together, how to make them feel comfortable, how to solve problems with patience and care. "Tell me," Minister Yang asked Grandma Park, "how would you handle meeting these aliens?" Grandma Park thought for a moment while stirring her cookie dough. "First, they must be hungry after traveling so far. We should feed them. Good food makes people less angry." She looked at her rolling pin. "And if they are scared of this, then we should show them how we really use it. Sometimes people are afraid because they don't understand." The room was quiet. Her simple words made more sense than all their complicated plans. "But what if they don't eat our food?" someone asked. "Then we will learn what they can eat," Grandma Park said simply. "When my youngest grandson married a girl who couldn't eat wheat, I learned new recipes. It's not hard if you care enough to try." Minister Yang turned to the diplomatic team. "From now on, we don't teach Mrs. Park diplomacy. She teaches us." He looked at the half-made cookies, starting with how to bake properly. For the next 2 days, something strange happened in the UN building. Diplomats learned to bake. They learned how measuring ingredients was like measuring words, how timing was as important in baking as it was in negotiations, how patience could solve most problems. And Grandma Park learned too. She learned the aliens' names and customs. She practiced their greetings. But most importantly, she stayed exactly who she was. A grandmother who believed that most problems could be solved with kindness, patience, and a plate of good cookies. On the morning the aliens were due to arrive, Duhan found his grandmother in the kitchen, humming as she packed her tools. "Are you ready?" he asked nervously. Grandma Park placed her rolling pin carefully in her bag. "The cookies are ready," she said. "Everything else will work out fine." As they walked to the meeting room, diplomats and security staff stepped aside respectfully. Earth's fate might depend on the small grandmother with her rolling pin and cookies. Somehow, that felt exactly right. The alien ship was enormous. It floated above the UN building like a giant silver bowl. Grandma Park looked up at it while adjusting her apron. "It reminds me of my mixing bowl," she said calmly. Duhan stood next to her, much less calm. His hands were shaking. In 10 minutes, they would meet the aliens for the first time. No one knew what would happen. The meeting room was special. One half was for humans, the other half for aliens. In the middle was a long table. Grandma Park had insisted on the table. "People should always talk while sitting at a table," she had said. Minister Yang walked in, looking worried. "Mrs. Park, please remember, when they arrive, don't make any sudden moves. Especially with the..." He looked at her rolling pin nervously. "Minister Yang," Grandma Park said kindly, "you look hungry. Have a cookie first." She held out a plate. The minister took one automatically. As he ate it, his shoulders relaxed a little. Suddenly, the air in the alien half of the room began to shine. 3 tall, blue-skinned aliens appeared. They wore silver clothes that looked like metal. Their eyes were large and purple. When they saw Grandma Park with her rolling pin, they stepped back quickly. "Greetings, honored warriors of Earth," the tallest alien said in perfect Korean. They had learned Earth languages from our TV shows. "I am Lee Jae-won, cultural attaché of the Stellar Coalition." Everyone was quiet, waiting to see what Grandma Park would do. She looked at the aliens carefully, then smiled. "Welcome," she said, stepping forward with her plate. "You must be tired after your long trip. Would you like a cookie?" The aliens looked confused. They stared at the plate, then at the rolling pin in her other hand. "Is this a test?" Lee Jae-won asked nervously. "No, it's a cookie," Grandma Park said simply. "I made them fresh this morning. They're still warm." The aliens whispered among themselves. Finally, Lee Jae-won stepped forward carefully. He picked up a cookie with long, blue fingers. He studied it closely, then took a tiny bite. His large purple eyes got even bigger. What is this sensation?" he asked in wonder. That's called delicious, Grandma Park said with a smile. Here, take more for your friends. The other aliens tried the cookies too. Their scared faces changed to surprise, then joy. But we thought these were weapons training centers, Li Jai once said, looking at the rolling pin. We saw your warriors practicing with these tools. Grandma Park laughed softly. Oh dear, no. This is for making food. Here, let me show you. She walked to the table and spread out some dough she had brought. The aliens watched, amazed, as she used the rolling pin to flatten it gently. You use this tool to prepare nutrients? Li Jai-Wan asked. I use it to make happiness, Grandma Park corrected him. Would you like to try? The aliens looked at each other. Then Li Jai-Wan stepped forward. Very carefully, Grandma Park showed him how to hold the rolling pin. His big hands were shaking at first, but she patted his arm gently. Don't be nervous, she said. The dough can feel it if you're nervous. Duhan watched as his grandmother taught an alien how to roll cookie dough. The other aliens came closer to watch. Minister Yang and the diplomats stood forgotten in the background. Somehow, in just 10 minutes, Grandma Park had turned a tense diplomatic meeting into a cooking lesson. And somehow, that seemed to be exactly what everyone needed. The alien flagship's meeting room had been turned into a kitchen. Grandma Park had insisted on it. Now, 5 hours into their second meeting, the room smelled of fresh bread and sweet cookies. The aliens couldn't stop watching her work. Li Ji-Wan stood closest to her, taking notes on a silver tablet. But why do you combine these ingredients? He asked. Our food processors create perfect nutrient blocks automatically. Grandma Park shook her head as she kneaded dough. Food is not just about nutrients, she explained. It is about caring. About making something with your own hands for people you care about. She looked at the alien's confused face. When was the last time someone made food specially for you? Li Ji-Wan blinked his large purple eyes. Made food? For me? He seemed puzzled by the idea. Our machines make all our food. They have done this for 1,000 years. Grandma Park stopped kneading the dough. She looked at all the aliens in the room with sad eyes. 1,000 years without someone cooking for you. She straightened her apron. This won't do. Everyone sit down at the table. Now. The aliens looked at Minister Yang, who nodded. Slowly, they sat down at the large table Grandma Park had requested. She began placing warm bread and cookies in front of each alien. Eat, she said firmly. This was made just for you, with care. That makes it taste better than anything from a machine. The aliens took small bites, then bigger ones. Soon, they were eating quickly, their eyes wide with surprise and joy. Some of them made happy humming sounds that their translators couldn't understand. I feel, Li Jai-Wan said slowly. I feel something strange. Like warmth, but inside, not from temperature. That's happiness, Du-Han explained from his corner. Food made with love does that. More aliens came to the kitchen meeting room. As word spread through the ship, Grandma Park taught them all. She showed them how to mix ingredients, how to knead dough, how to wait patiently for bread to rise. The aliens learned that cooking took time, but that the time was part of the gift. In our history, Li Jai once said, while carefully rolling dough, we thought focusing on efficient food production would make us more advanced. We eliminated kitchens we forgot about. He paused, looking at his hands covered in flour. This feeling. Grandma Park patted his arm, leaving a flour handprint on his silver sleeve. It's not too late to remember, she said. Now watch how I shape this dough. The secret is gentle hands. Minister Yang watched from the doorway as aliens and humans worked together in the makeshift kitchen. The feared rolling pin was now being passed from hand to hand, each alien taking turns learning to use it properly. We came to evaluate Earth's weapons, Li Jai-Wan said later, eating his third cookie. Instead, we found something we had lost, something more important than weapons. And what is that? Minister Yang asked. Li Ji-wan looked at Grandma Park, who was now teaching young aliens how to properly measure flour. "The joy of making food for others," he said. "The happiness of sharing a meal. The peace that comes from a warm kitchen." He smiled, showing purple-tinted teeth. "Your weapons are not what we thought they were. They are much more powerful." Grandma Park just smiled and brought out another batch of cookies. Sometimes the best way to prevent a war was to share a meal instead. Not everyone on the alien ship was happy about the new friendship with Earth. A group of alien officers thought their leaders had become too soft. They decided to do something about it. Late one night, when most of the ship was quiet, 3 alien officers sneaked into Grandma Park's kitchen. They planned to find proof that Earth's cooking tools were really weapons. What they didn't expect was to find Grandma Park still there, preparing dough for the next day. "You're just in time," she said without looking up. "I need help with these rolls." The alien officers froze. This wasn't part of their plan. The leader, a tall alien with dark blue skin, stepped forward. "We are not here to help with food," he said firmly. "We are here to expose your deception." Grandma Park finally looked up. She saw their angry faces and the strange devices in their hands. "Ah," she said calmly. "You think I'm hiding something." She picked up her rolling pin. The alien stepped back quickly. "See," the leader said. "You reach for your weapon." "This." Grandma Park held up the rolling pin. "Come here. I will show you exactly what this does." Her voice was firm, like when she used to tell her grandchildren to finish their vegetables. The aliens looked at each other, confused. This wasn't how their mission was supposed to go. But something in Grandma Park's voice made them step closer. "Look at this dough," she said, pointing to the smooth ball on the counter. "It needs to be flat to make good rolls. Watch carefully." Before they could stop her, she started rolling the dough. Her movements were smooth and careful. The aliens watched, fascinated despite themselves. The leader leaned in closer. "Would you like to try?" Grandma Park asked him. He stuttered. Then one of his devices made a loud noise. He had accidentally pressed a button. Suddenly, their voices were being broadcast throughout the entire ship. "What is happening in there?" Li Ji-wan's voice came through the speakers. "Security teams, respond." The alien officers panicked. They turned to run, but Grandma Park was faster. She had spent decades catching running grandchildren. Her rolling pin pointed at them like a teacher's ruler. "You will stay right there," she said in her strongest grandmother voice. "You haven't finished learning your lesson." The ship's security cameras caught everything. They showed 3 large alien officers backing away from one small grandmother with a rolling pin. The video spread quickly through the ship's communication system. When Li Ji-wan and the security team arrived, they found an unusual scene. The 3 officers were sitting at the kitchen table, flour on their hands, learning to roll dough. Grandma Park stood over them, giving instructions. "Your technique is improving," she told the leader, who was carefully shaping a roll. "See, isn't this better than causing trouble?" The alien leader looked at his perfectly shaped roll, then at the security team, then back at his roll. "It is satisfying," he admitted quietly. Li Ji-wan looked at Minister Yang, who had also rushed to the kitchen. "Your Earth warrior has turned our most aggressive officers into bakers," he said with wonder. "Not a warrior," Minister Yang corrected with a smile. "Just a grandmother who believes that making food is better than making trouble." The next morning, the story was all over the ship. The officers who had tried to expose Earth's weapons were now teaching other aliens how to make rolls. Sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy was to turn them into a student instead. The biggest room on the alien flagship had been transformed. Traditional Korean cooking tools lined the walls. Low tables filled the space. The smell of sweet rice flour filled the air. Today, Grandma Park was teaching the alien leaders how to make rice cakes. "Rice cakes," she explained while mixing the dough, "are special. We make them to celebrate important moments." She looked at the alien leaders sitting around her table. "Like making new friends." Li Ji-won watched carefully as she worked. In just a few days, he had become her best student. "Why do you put so much effort into making food different ways?" he asked. "Wouldn't one type be enough?" Grandma Park shaped the white dough with practiced hands. "Different foods tell different stories," she said. "When we make rice cakes for New Year, we remember our ancestors. When we make them for weddings, we celebrate love. The food carries memories and meanings." The alien leaders whispered among themselves. One of them, a female with silvery blue skin, spoke up. "We have forgotten how to make memories with food," she said sadly. "Our machines make everything the same." "Then it's time to remember," Grandma Park said firmly. She began handing out small portions of dough to everyone. "Today, we make new memories together." The aliens were clumsy at first. Their long fingers struggled with the sticky rice dough, but Grandma Park moved from table to table, showing them how to handle it properly. She treated the powerful alien leaders just like she treated her grandchildren, with patience and gentle correction. Minister Yang watched from the side. "A week ago, these aliens were ready to attack Earth," he whispered to Duan. "Now look at them." The alien leaders were focused completely on their rice cakes. Some had flour on their fancy uniforms, others had dough stuck to their fingers, but they all wore expressions of deep concentration and, surprisingly, joy. "We have been leading our people wrong," the female alien leader said suddenly. "We thought removing food preparation from our lives would make us more advanced. Instead, we lost something precious." Grandma Park nodded as she helped another alien shape their rice cake. "Food is not just for the body," she said. "It's for the heart, for bringing people together, for making peace." Li Ji-won stood up, holding his finished rice cake proudly. "I propose a new agreement between our peoples," he announced. "Earth will teach us the art of food making. In return, we will share our space technology." The other alien leaders agreed quickly. They had tasted too many good things to want to go back to nutrient blocks. But first, Grandma Park interrupted. Everyone must finish their rice cakes. No diplomatic talks on an empty stomach. The room filled with gentle laughter, both human and alien. As they ate their rice cakes together, Minister Yang turned to Duan. "Your grandmother just achieved what all our military plans and diplomatic strategies couldn't," he said. "She made peace through rice cakes." Duhan smiled as he watched his grandmother teaching an alien child how to shape the dough correctly. "She's done this all her life," he said, "bringing people together with food. The only difference is that now she's doing it for the whole planet." Outside the window, Earth shone blue and peaceful. The alien fleet that had come to destroy it now floated quietly, its weapons forgotten as its crews learned the art of making food with love. 1 year later, Grandma Park's kitchen had become much bigger. The new International Cooking Academy stood in the heart of Seoul, its glass walls reaching toward the sky. Inside, humans and aliens learned to cook together. On this particular morning, Grandma Park was teaching her most special class yet. At her table stood her great-granddaughter, my son, age 6, and a young alien child named Lee Ho-jin. Both wore small aprons and held tiny rolling pins. "Remember," Grandma Park said, showing them how to roll the dough. "Gentle hands make happy food." The alien child's purple eyes watched carefully. Like many young aliens, Ho-jin had been born on Earth. Her parents were part of the first group of alien families who had chosen to live on Earth and learn its food culture. "Grandmother Park," Ho-jin asked, her blue hands covered in flour, "why did our people want to fight Earth before?" Grandma Park smiled as she helped my son shape her dough. "Sometimes people fight because they don't understand each other," she explained. "But when you share food with someone, you begin to understand their heart." Through the kitchen windows, they could see the alien ships that now peacefully floated above the city. They had become a normal part of life. Every day, the ships brought new alien visitors who wanted to learn Earth's cooking arts. Minister Yang walked into the kitchen, followed by Li Ji-won. Both men had become regular visitors to Grandma Park's classes, The first intergalactic cooking competition is ready to begin, Minister Yang announced. In the year since the aliens had arrived, cooking had become the center of Earth's relationship with the Stellar Coalition. Alien restaurants served Earth food across the galaxy. Human chefs traveled to alien worlds to teach cooking skills. Peace had come through sharing food. Grandmother, Jai once said, watching the children work, "Did you ever imagine your rolling pin would change the galaxy?" Grandma Park looked at her old rolling pin, now displayed in a special case on the wall. Next to it hung pictures of the first meeting with the aliens, of cooking classes on the spaceship, and of the day Earth joined the Stellar Coalition. "A tool is what you make of it," she said wisely. "You can use it to harm, or you can use it to create happiness. The choice is always yours." My son held up her finished cookie proudly. Hijin showed off her perfectly shaped rice cake. The two children had become best friends, just like many other human and alien children who learned cooking together. "And now," Grandma Park said, taking off her apron, "it's time for the most important part of cooking." She gathered everyone around the table, sharing what you made with people you care about. As they sat together, eating cookies and rice cakes made by small hands both human and alien, Du-Han watched from the doorway. His grandmother had saved Earth, not with weapons or complicated plans, but with the simple wisdom she had always lived by, that food made with love could bring anyone together. Outside, more alien ships arrived, bringing new students eager to learn. Inside, in a warm kitchen filled with the smell of fresh-baked happiness, a grandmother, her rolling pin retired, but her work continuing, watched the future she had helped create, one cookie at a time.